third. Thank you. Welcome to the third event in our National Co-Housing Week. Maybe give a wave if you've been joining us for some other events. Great. And then maybe a wave if this is your first event of the week. Awesome. Nice mix. Great. Well, we will get started here in just a moment. As folks are joining, we invite you all to introduce yourself in the chat. First, we invite you to make sure that you're muted, and then go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Share anything you like, but you might consider including your name, where you're joining from, and then maybe what brought you here today. What do you hope to learn or gain or connect with today? So the chat can be a great place as we're speaking for you to connect with others and share contact information and all of that good stuff. So we will have a Q&A portion at the end, and we will be pulling questions from the chat. So if you have questions as we move through, please go ahead and put questions there in the chat, and we will either answer them live with some links, or we will send them off to our speakers when the time is right. So with that, I will introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Trish Becker. I'm the Executive Director of the Co-Housing Association of the US, and I'm just flying high this week. This is the first time that we've ever had a National Co-Housing Week, and it's going great. We're getting close to 100 open house events this weekend, and as I mentioned, this is the third in a week of virtual events. So really excited to be here and really excited to have co-created this along with Neil Planchon and Rains Cohen. Give whatever ways that you can to send some love virtually with your reactions or your hands or just your actual faces. But they have been just brilliant to work with, and I send all my gratitude to them. So thank you so much. I'm also very excited to turn it over at this point to our board member, who will be wearing a few different hats today. Shelley Parks is going to be our host for today. So I'll turn it over to Shelley.
Oh, thank you so much, Trish. It's so great to be with all of you. It's a big crowd today, and it's just so exciting that we're all here together. So I have a few things I'd like to share with you and a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to talk with you about all the exciting things that are happening here in the Pacific Northwest. So Coho US is a national nonprofit that seeks to advance co-housing and shift the culture toward a new paradigm where every home is surrounded by caring and collaborative neighbors who use less of the Earth's resources while living an abundant life. We do this through education, using events, a learning platform, newsletters, social media, to help people understand, build, and support co-housing and its impacts. We also do this through advocacy for co-housing through outreach, research, and publications. And of course, we also have a lot of networking events between past, current, and future co-housers and our allies. We are made up of a very small but passionate staff and a wide network of passionate volunteers, board advocates, and communitarians. So it's been quite a week. It's amazing to have a whole co-housing week with events all week long. If you missed any or can't make it to any of the live sessions, all of the Coho US events will be recorded and available on the Co-Housing Institute. Co-Housing Week will culminate this upcoming weekend with I think we're up to over 90 events now. Last I heard it was 70, so it's just growing. And it's just, all these different open houses all over. So check out the open house page to see what events are near you, both in-person events and virtual. So today we're gathering for a Pacific Northwest Spotlight. I'm going to share with you some of the highlights of what's happening here in the Pacific Northwest. And then we'll dive into the seniors in co-housing with Diane Wiley and Lou Bowers, sharing with us what they've been working on. So at the end of the weekend, we're going to have a celebration, and we hope you can all join us. It's going to be an open format where we'll have the opportunity to share photos, videos, and tales from our own events, whether you actually hosted an event or maybe you just attended. No registration is required. You can just mark your calendar with this link that I'm sure we'll get up on the chat, and we'll see you Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I have something really exciting to share with you all. We are going to be hosting a gathering in Sacramento, California on November 2nd. We're calling it Co-Housing and Beyond. And we'll be exploring many types of collaborative neighborhoods. We'll have breakout sessions, plenaries, and networking opportunities designed to support you on your co-housing journey, no matter where you are on that journey. And we'll also have local community tours on October 31st and November 1st, the days before. So we hope to see you all in Sacramento. And finally, if you have not attended the Commons, I encourage you to do so. The Commons is a monthly event for co-housing curious. We learn the basics of co-housing and other community-rooted housing models, and we connect with others. This is a gathering space for co-housing newbies and veterans alike, and it's a great place to connect with other communitarians like yourself. It's really easy to remember because it's at the 10th of every month at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So we hope to see you there. So I'd like to take just a moment to talk with you about the power of co-housing and how we are shifting the culture. Each one of you are part of this transformation by being on this call today. And we need you to be part of the movement for a more connected, resilient, sustainable, and democratic future. As a small nonprofit with a really big vision, we need your support to continue to grow community-rooted housing nationwide. Please consider supporting us with with money or time or your expertise, and you can make a small monthly donation, and please know that that makes a really big impact. So be sure and click on the link in the chat or use the QR code to learn more about how you can support co-housing on a national scale.
Thank you so much, Shelley. And I'm just going to pop in for a moment to tell you about a special deal that we're running to celebrate National Co-Housing Week. This is a deal for new members. So Coho US membership is an annual subscription program, and membership includes free virtual programming all year long. So we have a learning platform called the Co-Housing Institute, where we have virtual trainings all the time on topics from how to set up a common meal, how to find land, how to market your community, how to approach aging conversations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is free. That includes all of our live sessions and hundreds of recorded sessions from years prior. So it's really valuable if you're seeking that education, and we really seek to support communities across the life cycle. Members also receive 25% off of all of our multi-week trainings and our in-person events, like that Sacramento event that Shelley mentioned, like our national conferences, et cetera. So that's what memberships include. Usually our individual membership is $150 a year. We're going to offer it for just $100 for the whole year of programming. So if you're an individual, it makes it less than $10 a month to receive access to all of that and to be supporting co-housing with your contribution as well. If you're part of a group of more than 5 members, the community membership might be best for you. So basically those benefits that I mentioned, you can offer them to all of your members, regardless of how many there are. Usually that's $750 a year for the entire community. We're going to offer that for $500 this year for the year. So this is for new communities. And then we also have a program designed specifically for forming communities. It's called our Community Launch Program, and it includes all those same benefits. Plus, we know that launch communities are most interested in finding their new members. And so we have lots of outreach and advertising opportunities rolled into that Community Launch Program. Usually that's $1,500 a year. It's $1,000 a year if you want to sign up now. Just a little heads up, there's going to be some links in the chat that you can click to access these discounts. You have to click through it before you see the discount come on. So if you get on there and you think this is the regular price, just keep clicking through and then the discount will be clear. So hopefully you aren't scared away. So that's our new membership deal to celebrate National Co-Housing Week. I'm going to turn it back over to Shelley in this moment, not as our board member, but to talk about the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, thanks, Trish. I have to say, I just, the different membership programs, I just think it's such a great way to be plugged in. So thank you for walking us through that. So yeah, I'm really excited to share with you all what's happening here in the Pacific Northwest. I have to say that we have a very robust culture around co-housing here in the Northwest. The very first communities emerged in the early 1990s, when co-housing was just getting off the ground. And we now have approximately about 40 here in Washington and Oregon that are established. We have about 15 that are forming, and we have 4 that are either preparing their sites for construction or are under construction. So it's a lot happening. So let me just share with you a little bit more about some of those communities. And whoever's moving the slide, can you take me to the next one? Thank you. So, as I was thinking about today and knowing all of you were going to be on this call, one of the things I was thinking about was how excited I am that we have so many forming communities here in the Northwest that are still gathering together their members. We've got Fourth Corner Commons, a new community up in Bellingham, Washington that I'm helping get started. We have Rooted Northwest and Puyallup Co-Housing, both communities here in Washington that have farming around their culture. We've got Sunnyside Village in Marysville. They're preparing to start construction soon. We've got Cathedral Park Co-Housing in Portland, Oregon. It's a very urban site, which is really great. There's a nice smaller community in Port Townsend, Washington, another one. Port Townsend has a number of communities. And Crow Woods in Seattle that is under construction and has just a few homes left. So there's a lot happening. And, with these newer forming communities, it really means that, if you're out there searching for a co-housing community, you have many to choose from. And you have the opportunity to really be a part of making a co-housing community happen. My husband Charles and I were the 3rd household to join Skagit Commons in Anacortes, where I live, and we will forever be grateful for being a part of creating something so big. I think that few people have an opportunity in their life to come together with a group of people and do something that's so immense and so rewarding. And of course, then another way you can come into co-housing is if there is a resale in an existing community. And I know that Winslow Co-Housing on Bainbridge Island, not too far from Seattle, has a home for sale now. There's lots happening this weekend. So I would encourage you all to go to the Co-Housing Association and just, if you have not signed up for some of the events, go there and do so. We've got about 9, there may be more since I last looked, but last I looked, we had 9 virtual and in-person events here in Washington and 6 in Oregon. If you've never actually toured a co-housing community, this is a really great opportunity to do so, and I encourage you to take advantage of it. I know that for many people, the first time they actually walk through a co-housing community and feel it, that's the moment that things really change for them. And of course, virtual events are also great because with them, you can learn about, what's the process to get involved. You can meet some of the people and just, hear more about what's happening with the community. So again, I just want to encourage you. Some of the in-person events that are happening are Crow Woods and Capitol Hill Urban Co-Housing in the Seattle area, PDX Commons in Portland, Skagit Commons in Anacortes, Rooted Northwest, which is a forming community still, but they will be at their farm outside of Arlington, Washington. So just a lot's happening. So I encourage you all to visit these communities. So I was asked to share a co-housing story, and as a co-houser myself and one that, works with a lot of co-housing communities and visits a lot, I just have endless stories. But this is the one that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I call it my Tom and Marina story. So let me just tell you this amazing thing that happened. So it was late evening here at Skagit Commons on a very cold Pacific Northwest night. My husband, Charles, who sits on the maintenance team, answered a call. And as he jumped out of his chair, I heard him say with urgency, "I'm on my way." As he dashed out the door, he yelled at me, "Grab towels. A pipe has burst in Tom and Marina's place. It's flooded." So as Charles ran out to get the water turned off, I grabbed the towels and headed toward Tom and Marina's home. And what I saw astounded me. About 30 of my co-housing community members, my neighbors, were also running with towels in their arms towards Tom and Marina's home. By the time I arrived, the people were already in action. One unique thing about co-housing is that because we know each other, it's really easy for us to organize ourselves very quickly, and that's what was happening. And in less than an hour, we had all the water, and it was a lot of water, out of their place. But there's even more to this story. Because it was well below freezing that night, we took that huge pile of wet towels to our wood shop to get them inside. And we thought, oh, we'll just deal with them, tomorrow or later. And the surprise of all of us here at Skagit Commons, early the next morning, an email arrived from our community members, Catherine and Sally, letting us know that they had hauled all of those towels down to the 24-hour self-serve laundromat downtown, and they washed and dried them all. And in their email, they said to us, you can find all of your clean and folded towels in the common house on the tables. So, here's my takeaway that I think about a lot from this really terrible burst pipe event. I learned that if anything serious happens to me as a co-houser and an SOS goes out, I will literally have a whole co-housing community running to me. They will be running to me just like we were running to Tom and Marina's. And, I don't know of any other place I've ever lived where I could be assured that would happen. And it just gives me such love for my community and such gratitude to be living in co-housing. So, with all of you on this call, what about you? What kind of co-housing story do you want for yourself? And I really just encourage you to seek that out. So, how to get involved. So, of course, a great place to start is to go on to the Coho US website and look at the classified ads in the community directory and just start diving in to the areas that you think you might want to live. A lot of co-housers move from one place to the other because they're wanting that co-housing community. So just dive in. Reach out to those communities that interest you, attend an event or arrange a visit if you're able to do that. And then consider, is joining a forming co-housing group what you'd like? I think for many people, they find there's a lot of unknowns at that phase. But the important thing is that you will be part of shaping the community culture and making the unknowns known. And that's a pretty powerful thing to do. You can also look at communities that are under construction. You'll have a lot of your answers, but home selection might be a little bit more limited, and many of the community agreements may be in place. So you'll have to kind of jump into that. Or, of course, you can look for what we call resales. So existing communities that have homes that have come back up on the market. Just know that oftentimes you're going to have to act pretty quickly, and you're not going to need to come into the community knowing that years of hard work has happened before you arrive, and you'll find your place within the community. So I just want to encourage you all to be on your own co-housing journey. I have a lot of people who call me just to chat about what they're thinking about, and want to, maybe they have questions about co-housing. So I'm just opening my door to you, and I welcome your calls at any time. I'll put it again in the chat. But I just want to thank you all for being on this call today, and we look forward to seeing you here in the Pacific Northwest. And let's see, I have one more job to do before I turn it over. I'm just so pleased to introduce you to our speakers on seniors and co-housing. Lou Bowers is a founding member of PDX Commons in Portland, Oregon, and he's also a board member here at Coho US. He's a certified co-housing consultant through Katie McCammond's 500 Communities program. And he has most recently been assisting Adams Creek Co-Housing in Hood River, and also Our Home Development in North Portland. In an earlier life, Lou was a director of downtown development for the Portland Development Commission. And Diane is also a board member, and she's a founding member and longtime resident of Cherry Hill Co-Housing, formerly known as Pioneer Valley in Amherst, Massachusetts. And she lives part-time in Belfast, Maine. She chairs the Seniors in Co-Housing Committee for Coho US and has advised other co-housing communities, providing trainings and facilitation, decision-making, group process, and policy development. Diane's presented many workshops on many aspects of co-housing, including senior co-housing. And she's currently doing some freelance grant writing after retiring from Mount Holyoke College as a director of foundation relations. So I am excited to turn it over to you two.
Thank you so much, Shelley. And I kept wanting to comment about some of the things that you were saying about thinking, because Lou and I are going to focus a lot on senior co-housing to really encourage people to be open to the idea of joining a forming group or an existing community that has a unit for sale, but we'll probably hit on this a little bit later. I am going to share a few slides about co-housing and senior co-housing, because I don't know how many people know about co-housing, but we'll zip through these and then spend our time answering questions you have. And I believe we're going to use the chat function since there's so many people. As you have questions, throw them in the chat, and then somebody will curate them so we can try and answer a lot of your questions. So with that, I'm going to go to my slides. Can everybody see that okay? Great. So Lou and I are both on the Seniors and Co-Housing Committee for Coho US. Lou does live in a senior co-housing community. I live in a multi-generational community for 30 years and am a senior, as you can tell. So we have different perspectives that we're bringing to our work to support seniors in co-housing, whether it be a senior community or a multi-generational community aging in place. Quickly, I just want to make sure that folks who might be new to it, what is co-housing? It's an intentional community model that has private homes clustered around shared spaces. Homes are completely functional with bedroom, living room, kitchen, bathroom. And they're usually smaller than normal because there's a lot of common amenities that people share. This is not a new idea. This is something that's ancient, and we are grabbing it back to a community supported idea, both in terms of our living spaces, but how we interact and support each other. Interesting. The typical features of any co-housing community are that it's participatory. It's a self-managed community model, both in terms of maintaining it and making decisions and doing the work. The neighborhood design encourages social interaction in terms of where you put the mailbox and how you pass your neighbors going to transportation, whether it's your car or public transportation down the street. Lots of common facilities for meals and shared activities, whether it's a workshop or craft space. It is resident managed. It's non-hierarchical. There's no group that's making decisions like you would in even though we're legally, most of us are condo associations or cooperatives. There's no board that's making decisions. It's the residents who are choosing their decisions. And there's no shared community economy, which is true of other intentional community models. Co-housing is all over the country and all over North America. There's a lot in Canada. Probably this is a dated number of 180, 20 are senior built and being lived in. All the way back to 22 years ago was the first senior community, and then brand new ones that opened up this past year. Canada has a number of, where does it happen? The locations vary from urban. Lou's community and PDX Commons is urban, right in the center of Portland. There's also suburban communities and rural communities, and this is true for senior co-housing. They are all, I would say more of them are situated towards suburban and urban to be near resources and shopping and transportation. But there are senior communities in the eastern US that are very rural. They can be new construction or a retrofit, and they could be other co-housing inspired examples. All of these that I have on the picture are all senior communities in Oak Creek in Oakland, Mountain View in California, Shepherd Village in West Virginia, Phoenix Commons in California, and Valverde in New Mexico. The newest ones are in Oklahoma and Massachusetts. Heartwood Commons just moved in, and Hager Homestead also on the same timeline have moved in. Both of them, I think Heartwood has a couple of units for sale, and Hager Homestead has a unit for sale. And both of them I've met a number of people in those two communities who are just absolutely fantastic. Hager Homestead is in a suburban community outside of Boston. Heartwood is in Tulsa and has amazing community city amenities, from walking trails to lots of shopping, lots of greenery around them. I'm really impressed with their community. These are some of the quotes that, in Hager Homestead that I took off of the website, and I will strongly encourage you to go shopping for ideas and examples in the various websites of communities. And I saw in the chat, there is a directory on cohousing.org, and you can filter it by senior communities, and you can see that whether they're built or forming, and you can go visit their websites, and many of them do virtual tours. Wolf Creek Lodge does one every month. They're in California, up in the Sierra Nevadas. And it's a great way to learn, not necessarily if you're interested in moving there, but you want to learn more about how the communities operate and what their culture's like. I strongly encourage you in your research to go visit various communities. Heartwood Commons, they list their values on their website, which I also, again, gives you a flavor of who they are and how they want to live together. And a lot of it is, we're going to take care of each other, we're going to have fun, it's a balance of privacy and community, which all co-housing is. That's a core feature. And these are all pictures from Heartwood Commons along the slide. Physical elements of co-housing, whether it's multi-generational or senior, they're the same. But there's a lot of emphasis for senior communities to make sure that they're accessible, physically accessible, but they can be single level, they can be apartment complexes like Lou's at PDX Commons. Quimper Village, we have a member who hopefully will be joining us today that lives in single level cottages in Port Townsend. And again, I mentioned they can be in rural to urban settings. And the amenities vary depending on what the residents choose and what they can afford when they're planning new construction. It can be everything from exercise, laundry. Guest rooms are usually a very common feature, as units are smaller than average, and you can book the guest rooms for your visitors. Why do people choose senior co-housing? That's a question we get a lot from our committee, and also in our monthly Q&A on the 20th of the month. People say, well, why would people live in senior co-housing? Well, the physical design really features that. The idea of active aging is really front and center, which in my community, I've been there 30 years. I was a single parent in my late 30s. The focus was all on kids, not on aging, no thought about it. And even 30 years later, it's hard to have a conversation about aging well in communities. So senior co-housing, that is front and center of people's minds, and a great way to think about, how do I want to live out the rest of my life? Because I've got people who are thinking about the same thing, and it's not as scary to share that with my neighbors. And social activities are more senior focused. Community meals are a little more relaxed than some of the meals that I've been to when my daughter was 8 and 9 years old. Might be a little crazy, or you've got toys all over the pedestrian way. So it's a different feel, it's a different culture, it's a different emphasis. And a lot of communities at the same time are very clear that senior co-housing is not assisted living. And that's a very important element, because people are drawn to senior co-housing where they might really need to have assisted living. And many of the senior communities emphasize, as I do with this, neighborly care, not health care. We're happy to help you with picking up your groceries, getting your medication, giving you rides if you're not driving anymore. But when your health needs really exceed what the community can cover, it's important to have that distinction between neighborly care and not health care. And you'll find that in a lot of the websites of senior communities. Another reason why senior co-housing is so important is that there's a lack of housing stock for folks who are aging. And it's commonly called a silver tsunami. There's a huge number of people who need and want housing, and senior co-housing can be part of that solution. Isolation is a big health concern. It's a health crisis in this country. And being in community really can be an antidote to that by having community around you. Also, living alone is very expensive to have, if your community even has Meals on Wheels or can bring things to you. From a municipal point of view, it's a super expensive way to take care of the seniors in your community. And co-housing can be a radical solution to communities who are dealing with, how do we take care of our seniors? Aging in place versus aging in community, interdependence versus independence. You're living alone, I'm independent, and I'm living in community where I can give and receive help. I can give and receive. I can help someone learn how to knit, or I can help someone, or I can take a music lesson from my neighbors. So there's a lot of sharing and interaction that's social, that's learning, that's wisdom, and senior co-housing really allows you to focus on those things. The myth of aging in place, I'm really concerned about that it actually is a very isolating choice to stay in your home that you've grown up in or that you've raised your kids in and you hate to leave, but it's actually very bad for your health and expensive for you, and that community living is a much better solution. These are reasons that people who live in senior co-housing have told us, which is it's an opportunity to help one another stay fit. It reduces the amount of maintenance that I have to worry about from living alone in my house to living in community. There's less work involved. It feels safe. I have connections, very easy connections. Even when I'm an introvert, co-housing does work for me when I want connection or when I want privacy. A lot of people talk about not wanting to be a burden to their children, and their kids feel good that their parents or parent is in a community setting. Being able to eat better and eat more regularly because there's community meals is another aspect that people have talked about. And also the values that people hold about living in a more sustainable way, living on a smaller footprint. Co-housing offers that because the physical structure is taking up less space than 30 houses versus 30 units that are clustered. Who does well in co-housing? Not everybody will fit into co-housing, will be comfortable in co-housing. You have to deal with conflict. You have to be willing to do work and share the responsibilities in committee work to make a self-managed community like co-housing work. And it's important to, oh, I see that's doubled up, and are committed to helping one another age successfully. This is a picture from, Lou has a longer slideshow, but I really love that he had a slide about what's fun about living in their community. They have common meals, as do most co-housing communities. They have parties, as does my community. We have house concerts. People enjoy getting together to volunteer, to work in local community organizations. And organizing a bike ride or a hike is much easier and creates that fun that people really want to reach out for. This is a question sorry. Co-housing as an affordable housing model. This is a question that comes up a lot, and it's a challenging one because particularly for co-housing that is new construction, co-housing, like any other construction, is market rate. We still have to pay the same price for the building construction, for the all the professionals that are involved, the architects, the builders, the engineers, is the same. We don't have, co-housing isn't cheaper on those fronts. And it requires most of the co-housing projects, not all, some are rentals. Most of them are home ownership based. So that requires some amount of equity to be able to buy in and get a mortgage to live in co-housing, whether it's multi-generation or senior. We are looking in, Coho US is really looking into how to expand affordability, the models of affordability. And there's some interesting models out there that we are learning about and want to present and add to the understanding of community-driven housing. So please stay tuned for that. But most of the communities that have been built to date have really been either new construction or a retrofit of existing, and in some cases, buying houses around a neighborhood and creating co-housing among those communities. But living in co-housing does have financial savings by sharing lawnmowers, sharing bulk food buying, sharing cars. There's a lot of ways that co-housing communities have found ways to make the lifestyle much more affordable than living alone. The ways to get involved, which I think Trish already mentioned in her opening remarks, is purchasing a home in an existing community. And I highly recommend exploring buying a unit in senior co-housing if that's something that you're interested in, or as a senior in multi-generational projects, to really buy into it so that you can get into it a lot sooner than if you start your own group. But that is an option to start something in your own community, or to become a member of a forming community and help make that possible. Lastly, I just want to mention that our co-housing, our senior committee has a monthly Q&A, informal. Anybody can come. There's no price to it. It's on the 20th of every month at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and you can figure out the time for your time frame. And come join us and bring your questions. And some of the folks that come on the call are from forming communities and will share something about what's going on with their projects. So I want to give a couple of minutes to my co-host Lou, if he has any comments about what I've shared. I'm going to stop my share and invite Lou if he's got some comments.
And I think that's a great presentation. I've seen it before and it's really very comprehensive. I'll just say a few words. I live in PDX Commons, which is a very urban co-housing model. We are one building on a half-acre site. We're 4 floors and we have an elevator and it's stacked flats, which means that you do not have to use any stairs if you don't want to. Stairs are great exercise, but at some point they become challenging. We have 27 homes, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And we have 5,000 square feet of common space, including things that Diane talked about, like a great room where we can eat together and a commercial style kitchen. We also have a media room and a library and an exercise room. It's a really nice physical building. But again, the building is not the key. The building is just the shell in which the community takes place. And that's what goes on inside. And like the story that Shelley had about her community with the pipe that burst, we had a story recently, and it's about the end of life. And that is an inevitability, and it's certainly going to happen a lot in senior co-housing. Well, one of our members, a single woman, was active. She was here for 3 years, and then we started to see less of her. And she had a couple of friends, and they sort of went in there, and it turns out that she was having significant health problems, but she was very reluctant to share it. She was a very self-sufficient woman, and she just didn't want, she didn't want people to worry about her. Well, unfortunately, it was beyond that, and she did need people to worry about her. And so these friends were able to encourage her to contact her family members, her daughter in this case, and her daughter sort of jumped right on it and got involved. And then some healthcare, she brought in some healthcare people to help her because she needed that kind of care. But the people here at PDXC performed a kind of a social support network for her and dropped in and talked to her and cooked dinner for her occasionally and helped her basically come to the realization that she really wanted to stay in her unit. She wanted to die within her community and not move out to a care facility or a hospital or something like that. So we worked with her daughter and we made that possible. And about 2 months later, she did die here, and she was amongst friends and her family. And it's the first time in my community we've had someone die in community. So it was a real milestone. It was a real gift that she gave to our community to share that with us. And I was very proud of how our community responded. The day after she died, we had a memorial service just down in our great room, and people gathered and lit some candles and told some stories, and it was great. And then we had another memorial service a week later so that more people who maybe were out of town could attend. But it was a real, it was a genuine expression of our community, and it made us stronger. One of the key things about co-housing for me is people are going to disagree. We're human beings, we have different opinions. People don't see it the same way. But if you do your governance right in co-housing, and if you're able to address your differences, there are ways that you can solve your differences in a way that makes the community stronger, rather than in a way that divides it. So right now, co-housing, even more than before, because of the national situation, is an incredible refuge and safety place where we can work out our disagreements respectfully and make the community stronger for that. So again, we live in a very urban place. You can walk to 2 supermarkets. The neighborhood pot shop is just down the end of the block. We have 2 beer bars within 3 blocks away. So we're one particular model of co-housing. But again, as Diane said, there are other models of co-housing. For anyone in the Portland area, we're going to be having an open house on Saturday, this coming Saturday from 1 to 4. And then on Sunday, we're going to have a virtual open house. So if anybody not in the Portland area, you can get on the PDXC website and just leave us a message and we'll send you the Zoom connection. The Zoom open house will be Sunday from 12 to 1:30. So to give you a chance to visit and then kick the tires and more importantly, meet the people some of the people that are living in senior co-housing. Diane, did you want to see if
I wanted to, before we get into questions, Mina from Quimper Village is with us, and she represents another senior co-housing community up in Port Townsend. I'd love her to jump in and share a little bit about her experience, how long the community's been around, and it's a different layout than PDX. You're muted.
You should be able to unmute now, Mina.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Yes, I had no control. Well, I agree with Lou on almost all the things he said, and at least in this forum. And I love living in co-housing. We've been almost 8 years together now, and I was looking because people sometimes ask how many people are new and how many existing members. After 8 years, we have 18 original members and 10 new people. So we tend to have a turnover about once a year. We've lost 4 people since over the 8 years. And one of the advantages of being seniors, and maybe it sounds morbid, but we're very comfortable talking about death and end of life plans, and it makes it normalized. So we can talk to each other, so we can help each other. And we brought in lots of speakers to help us with end of life paperwork and education. And I don't know of another environment where I could get my questions answered and share that kind of intimate experience of dying. And we've had members that were very open about it. 2 took their own lives with death with dignity. And we got to be a part of that. And they were very generous to share that. So the dying at home is kind of a bonus of co-housing, but it's obviously the coming together that brings us joy. And we've got a couple of members who can no longer drive, so we always make sure that we either take them to the store or we check in before we shop because we know each other. And that's the thing about co-housing is you really do get to know each other, and not everybody participates fully. There's a few people that I'm wondering why they're a part of us, but they are, and they do their chores to help us keep things going. They're just not very social. So finding a community that you resonate with is probably the number one thing. I think we have a beautiful site. It's level. You can pull your walkers down the sidewalk without too much of a problem. We have a golf cart that we can transport anyone who needs right to their front door. We have lots of amenities like that. But get to know the people. I give tours. We probably give tours once every 2 weeks. Just anybody who's in town. Join for a meal or a weeding session and get to know the people in co-housing. So I guess that's all I can add.
That's great. And I've met a few of the folks there. I've been out to visit, and they are a feisty bunch. I will say they're fun, they're feisty, as are the folks I've met at PDX Commons. I've actually stayed there a couple times, and I think Lou and I did a work and participation workshop last year at the conference. And we did some myth busting about, if older people can't do work. And so it was like, I had a slide with a bunch of, porch rockers. It's like people have this idea that everybody gets old, one, at the same time, and two, they can't do anything after 70. And in my community, my next door neighbor is 85, and he's the one that climbs up on the ladder and does this and that and gets underneath the tractor and fixes the motor. 85. It's we all age differently, and the folks in a senior community are 55 to 90. That's a huge spread of age, ability, gifts, skills, limitations. So I just, when Mina was talking, I remember going, oh yeah, lots of fun. People are having fun because they can be a little more relaxed. They're not running around after 3 kids or trying to get to work on time. Not that, and a lot of people still work too in senior communities. So anyway, I'll stop there. Hopefully people have questions. I don't know how you want to.
We've got a few questions populating in the chat, and I invite anyone to put questions for Diane or Lou or Mina or, the other folks who are here today. We can have this be pretty conversational. But we do have a couple questions that I'll toss your way. One person is asking about governance, and they are wondering, where do you recommend that one start their educational journey on governance methods like consensus, et cetera?
Great question. A couple of places. Trish mentioned the Cohousing Institute for workshops. You can both sign up for future workshops, but also if you're a member, you can get recorded workshops. And there have been workshops that have been offered in the past on facilitation, which is an aspect of governance, and on sociocracy and consensus. My community shifted from consensus to sociocracy 12 years ago. FIC, Foundation for Intentional Community, also offers workshops, including on training on sociocracy. And Sociocracy for All, which is a nonprofit, they do a ton of training on governance and really offer a lot of great information. I see a question here. What's the difference between consensus and sociocracy? The phrase I would use, and I can ask others who do use sociocracy, to me, sociocracy is consensus delegated to committees, so that a lot of decisions that don't need the whole community to decide are given over to committees. So the committees are a microcosm of the community and make decisions. So the Buildings and Grounds Committee, the Common House Circle, the Community Life, they'll make a lot of decisions and seek input from the community, but make decisions at the committee level. So it's a different way of seeking input, testing out proposals, but the final decision happens in a smaller group. So it's much more efficient, moves faster than when you're doing everything with the whole group. Anybody else want to jump in to add to what's the difference between consensus and sociocracy?
See Lou speaking, but
Sorry, I
there
forgot.
you go.
Sociocracy is really an organizational model, as Diane's talking about it, the way you structure committees and decision making. Consensus is a way of making decisions. It's not a whole model that creates the structure for your organization. In our community, the first before we did all our design workshops, we hired a professional facilitator to help us decide how we were going to make decisions. And she walked us through, and we decided to use a consensus process, a modified consensus process. Consensus means that you discuss the issue until everyone involved agrees that they can agree to it or they can live with it. If someone feels that the decision is bad for the community or violates some of your precepts, then you need to keep talking about that and understand their concerns and work that through. Now, in our model, if there's some time pressure or the discussion isn't getting where, we do have the ability to do a voting fallback with a 75% majority. In the 14 years that we've been making decisions, we have never used the voting fallback. So it's there to kind of give people comfort, but we make all the decisions by consensus. But the key is when you get your group going, find a local consultant. There are a lot of them around. There's a few that have been in the chat that can help you learn how to do it as a group. You can't learn to do consensus by yourself. You need to learn it in a group of people and learn the different roles, learn how you can be a leader in consensus and also how you can be a follower in consensus. That's very important type of roles. But I believe that almost all of the co-housing communities I'm aware of use some form of consensus or modified consensus. And the sociocracy communities also use a consensus and modified consensus for making the decisions. The key is to hear every voice, to try to get the best decision you can that people can move ahead and support. And that's where consensus is much better than a 49-51% voting process, which is the way democracy we use in this country. Consensus and co-housing is really a form of direct democracy. We're all there and we all are involved in decision making. It's a great training ground to be a good citizen.
I will also add one of the things that distinguishes decisions is if there's a decision that cannot be reversed, that would go to the whole community. So if there was a big financial decision or you wanted to add a building, something that you could not undo, but otherwise all those other decisions that can, and they're supposed to go back and check back in a year or 18 months or 6 months to see if it's working. So that's a divider between a major decision that really needs the full community. So we have that kind of distinction. Other questions? Oh, Mina, did you want to add in?
Add a little bit. We use sociocracy. I love it. I can't imagine a better tool. Brings us closer in our meetings. And I would really encourage forming groups to figure out your system, whether sociocracy or whatever it is, early, because it's what will help you get forward on all the gazillion decisions you have to make.
Agreed. Bye, Anne.
Bye, Anne.
Good to see you.
And thanks also, there's like this verbal conversation here, and then there's tons of great resources and recommendations happening in the chat. So thanks to everyone who's participating in that exchange of wisdom and resources. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. So this one might be helpful to have Neil chime in as well. Someone's wondering if there's any data that living in senior co-housing delays entry into traditional senior warehousing and assisted living or nursing homes.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. I can't give you data, but I can give you lived experience. And I'm sure Mina and Lou and anybody else in senior co-housing can tell you anecdotally, it totally delays because your health is improved through social connection, through better eating, through just, we have someone who's now has to move into assisted living, but she's delayed it probably by 10 years. And I totally, I can see it in 3 dimensions that it does, but I don't know if CRN has any kind of, the research network has any kind of data on that, but would you agree, Lou or Mina, that you've seen delays in your neighbors not having to move into assisted living?
Definitely. I mean, we've rallied around people when they've had illnesses or surgeries, and have been able to help them move forward. And 3 months later, they're back around and doing things, and they wouldn't be able to do that if they didn't have a community around them. We also have a health team that is really supportive. So we have a vaccination clinic. I think we've had 6 of them, 7 of them since COVID. And we invite other co-housers and neighbors to also join. It's a local pharmacist that comes in and gives us any of the shots we want. So things like that make it easier to be healthy. We have neighbors who want us to be healthy.
Thanks, everyone.
Mm.
Here's a fun one from Melanie that I'm excited to hear the answer to as well. Melanie's wondering, have you heard of folks finding love in senior co-housing communities, or I'd expand it to co-housing, or if there's any sweet stories that stand out?
I've got, we have two relationships that have developed over the last few years. And in one case, the person, the male, has never had a relationship before. And pretty soon we are watching he and M walking around an awful lot together. And pretty soon they're holding hands. And pretty soon we're giving them all a bad time. Uh, and one of the others that her husband and she moved in together. He knew he was dying. He wanted his wife to be taken care of. Well, now it's been almost 8 years, and about a year ago, one of our newest neighbors, they fell in love. And they're right now in England. He's owned some pubs in England, and they're over there for a couple of months. But yeah, that's two different relationships. It surprised everybody. They still have their own houses. They haven't moved in. The one couple moved in together, and they just sold John's house. But the other one are keeping their. They live on opposite ends of the thing, so I see them walking back and forth an awful lot.
Mina, you're giving us a brand new way to market co-housing. Shelley, take note of this.
Really?
Co-housing, the way to find love.
Yeah, we need a few more men to start joining us.
That's true.
That's funny.
I love that question. Any other stories of co-housing love? I'll outsource it to.
Well, mine in a multi-generational community, unfortunately, marriages broke up because relationships started with others.
Huh?
I wouldn't say that's a great marketing ploy, but the cool thing is, in both examples, the couple stayed in the community so that the kids could go back and forth, and that the former partners remained friends. So that was amazing. I mean, it was really hard for us to see the dissolution of the original couples, but they really worked it out, and the housing worked out. And it's been a really interesting way to, keep the kids in community and the parents and supported. So.
Trish, we had a nice story here at Skagit Commons. We had a couple that had been together for 14 years and they had never married, and they moved in together, and they realized pretty quickly that they went through this whole process of what it meant to live in intentional community. And so one of the gals in that partnership thought, I think we need to be more intentional in this relationship. So she proposed. And so we hosted the wedding here at Skagit Commons, and all of our, a lot of women had always wanted to be flower girls. So our community, many women here in the community were flower girls, and we just had a really big, beautiful wedding celebration, which was, pretty, like within a few months after we moved in, which was pretty big deal. So it was great.
I love that story. And Shelley, you've often shared that intentional community can save a marriage in many ways. So yeah, thank you for that. Okay, total flip from love to money. Someone is speaking about that the slide of characteristics of co-housing said something about not having shared community finances, and they're hoping you can elaborate. Specifically, how do you handle community expenses? What about shared meals when some people join in and others don't for a given meal? Can you get into kind of the nitty-gritty a little bit of the finances?
Sure. I can start with Cherry Hill and bump it over to my colleagues. So our condo fees, which any condo association usually collects, our condo fees are divided between the operation. So we have an operating budget. So my condo fee, a percent goes to operating of utilities and insurance and property taxes of the community. And the other goes into a reserve fund. And that reserve fund takes care of replacement. It's replacement reserves. So when the dishwasher dies or the We have a community truck when that has to be replaced. It's in a 25-year replacement reserve schedule. So that's where the money goes. And then I pay for my own utilities and such. Community meals, we have a community meal system where you sign up for a meal and in our community, we prepay a certain number of meals and then my account gets deducted. So that's how I pay for community meals. And then we have a couple of clubs. We have a chicken club, so that group takes care of the expenses of raising 30 chickens. And we have an exercise room and people pay a small fee to keep that going. So there's different ways that people can opt into certain kinds of expenses. Our guest room is on a donation basis. So if I'm going to reserve it for a few days for my sister, I'm going to pay $20 a night for her to stay in that. And that, again, that goes towards the utilities in the common house. Lou or Mina, how do you handle your finances?
Yeah, we have a condo fee, the same, that it covers a replacement reserve and then operating. We do our meals as a separate deal. We have volunteer lead chef, and that person puts together the menu, and then people sign up electronically. We have a Google system, and then the chef gets helpers on the day of the meal. And then there's also a cleanup team. I'm on the cleanup team. My wife is one of the lead chefs. But they take the cost of the food and divide by the number of people that sign up. And we put a basket out with the mail. People put the money in the basket. Then the little extra money goes into paying for the staples in the kitchen. So we sort of keep it a simple system. And when we have a meal, I'd say 95% of the people that are in residence are there. We're getting 25 to 30 people, including guests sometimes, at our common meals. So it's great. It's obviously a social event, but that's how we handle finances.
Mm.
We're very similar. I would say half of our condo fee is going for reserves, as yours is also. And the community pays for all of our shared building electric, all of the water on site. So for my little condo, I pay only for my electric, which is electric heat and lights, and everything else is part of the community. Our meals, we have had to raise prices because costs have gone up, but we have a set fee. Right now it's $7 for a meal. And anybody who signs up, we keep the accounting completely out of the main, our main budget. And it's a self-sustained community meals. So if I eat, I just sign up and our little bookkeeper keeps tally of you need to pay some because you're about to run out of your credits. Or for me, when I cook, then I get reimbursed for my money, my expense for cooking, or I can have a credit towards more meals. So it's a little simpler. We don't try to divide the money. We just set a set price so people know what they do. And that seems to work and gives us a little extra for our pantry. We have a pantry with rice and basics.
Great, thank you. We've got a question. It might have been answered in the chat, but maybe you can speak to this a little bit. Someone's wondering about how many senior communities are the HUD legal age is 55 and up or 62 and up. And then they said, or other sort of active limited. And I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that, but maybe you can speak a little bit to the parameters of senior co-housing.
Yep. So it's 55 plus, I think in most, I think it might be state, but 55 plus, but it can be 80%. So there can be folks who live there that are under 55 or a couple that is 55 and another one's 50. But not 100% of the homeowners have to be 55 plus. So it can be less.
Right.
Is it-
The rule is 80% of the households have to have one owner that's 55 above. 20% can be any age. That's what allows you to designate yourself as a senior community. And the purpose is just to not run afoul of fair housing laws about advertising for seniors, et cetera. It's a self-designation. I think it's kind of meaningless, but some people in our community take it seriously. So we are a self-designated 55+ community.
The only other thing the person might have been questioning is there an upper limit to who we encourage to join us, or that legally we don't exclude anyone age-wise, but we certainly educate people if they're wanting to, they come with their mom and they're thinking this is going to be okay for mom to, because we're going to take care of mom. And so we try to educate people so that the people that do join us understand that it's not a care facility.
Well, I had a funny story. We do that, and we get people that come in, especially when we were filling up, and they would come by and say, "Oh boy, this will be great for my mother." And this is like a 60-year-old, so it'd be great for my mother, etc. We went, "Oh yeah, well, you know." So I was doing a housing fair the other day for the one of the villages, Northwest Villages, which is people that want to age in their community. And this older woman came up. She was probably 70. She says, "Oh, this would be great for my daughter. I want to tell her about it." So I said, "Yes, that's what I get. Now you got the idea." So works both ways.
As a follow-up to that, someone's wondering about pre-existing medical conditions. Is that prohibitive? Can you speak to how people care for themselves and one another?
Well, we are not a healthcare facility. We don't have any healthcare services. So anyone, and because of the nature of the community, there's a lot of participation. So we look for people that can actively participate. But there are ways people can do that who are not necessarily mobile. We've had people that we have jobs that do not require, standing on ladders or things. We have some office jobs. So we try to find jobs that work for people's different abilities. But to live here independently, you do need to be able to take care of yourself. And if you need more health care, then you need to either bring that in or you need to move to a facility that already has that. But there's no specific restrictions.
I think we don't address health issues, except again, broadly and educationally.
So you're saying, Mina, if someone is interested in Quimper Village, you have a conversation about what is involved in living there,
Yes.
and it being, independent living that is, resident managed. It is a self-managed model. So a lot of people who have pre-existing conditions, depending on what it is, can participate. It's really just a matter of how do you see yourself being involved as a self-managed community model. I hope that explains it.
We encourage people to fill out, not because it's going to come that we're going to judge them, but it's more of a self-evaluation to some questions to think about. Is your health going to be an issue living here? Are you going to, is this safe for you? Or how do you get along with other people? Or how do you get along with people that you don't agree with? And those kinds of things. So I think a self-evaluation is valuable, and then meeting other members and really getting involved with the community so you can get a sense of how you fit in. And all that's just on education. And we have a document that we agreed to that's that we give neighborly care, not health care, and we've used that. We've given it to our members, but also for visitors so they can get a sense of what kind of health care we do provide.
Thanks.
Great. We've got a question about conflict. Lou, you mentioned conflict bringing a group closer together. Can you share a bit more? They ask, do you have a restorative justice system or another system that you recommend for addressing conflict if 2 or more members are having one?
We don't use that term explicitly, but we do have our group is called Transforming Conflict Through Values. And we believe that to the degree we can strengthen the values of our community and the connections, that is gonna minimize the negative aspects of conflict. It used to be called the conflict resolution team, but this is a new perspective. And we've had members have had training. There's a number of good trainers that are always takes part in the National Coho Conference about conflict. And we do that, and we really emphasize respect. I mean, that's a key to living in community. Be respectful, and we can differ. We can even differ with strong feelings, but let's be respectful of each other and try to hear what the other person's perspective is. And that's what consensus decision making is about, trying to imagine, oh, somebody sees this differently than I do. What can I learn from their different perspective? So it may not be officially restorative justice, but we do it in a way that really talks through and builds respect. And then at the end of the whatever the dispute, whatever the decision is, the people can continue to be friends, strong members of the community, and the community stronger because we've got the benefit of these different ideas. But there's a lot of good training out there about conflict resolution. I would say get yourself some of that training, and could be very useful. It's helped us a lot.
I would, oh, go ahead, Mina.
To have a conflict resolution team, like you were saying, and what we discovered is we really don't have the skill sets in our village to really help two members that are in conflict, to help them work through it. And so we've got some funding for a mediator, and we've used that twice in the 8 years we've been here to help the neighbors, because we just didn't feel like we had the skill sets.
I would strongly encourage new groups, whether you're forming or you've moved in, to invest in training. We did that early on in our 30-year history, and it has really paid off. Conflict is inevitable, and learning to, we did nonviolent communication training, conscious communication training, facilitation, which is very important in conflict, is to know how facilitation works. It's an element of managing conflict. We also, we have a great group called Care and Counsel that has evolved over the years, a number of different strategies for managing conflict. And they have a booklet that they put together. Some of it is depending on the nature of the conflict. They don't mediate the conflict, but they will help with arranging a listening session, which I've been part of. I had a conflict with someone, and each of us brought someone with us. So there was myself and my support person and the person who I had a conflict with, and someone from Care and Counsel set up a listening session, and we had a couple of them, and that was very, very helpful. That's one aspect, one strategy out of the booklet of what they've created. So they themselves, it's a group of 5 or 6 people, have gone on to get trained to offer different ways to support moving through conflict. And again, it's something that we don't grow up with in our society. We're not comfortable with conflict. And it's a very important aspect of community, that how to be with people that we don't agree with or we don't like. I'm not friends with all of my neighbors, but I care about every one of my neighbors. And that's, to me, what community is. So I often will need help with going through a conflict and having agreements on how to work through that. So I think training, learning, it's a lifelong process that if you want to live in community, you have to commit to that.
Thank you all for your reflections on conflict. This question's for Mina. Wondering if your group went through the Successful Aging Study Group 1 by Chuck Durrett, and if so, did it make a difference in how the community approaches these kind of issues?
We hired Chuck and Katie to help us develop Quimper Village and work through all the decision processes. I'm sorry, what was the actual question? That was.
Yeah, they were wondering if you did SG1, the study group on successful aging, and if it impacted the community.
I don't think we did that because
I think you did do it, actually, unless you weren't. I think that was part of early on.
the design process and looking at all the different.
No. No,
I'm-
it was a workshop that Chuck trained people to go through aging successfully issues. And maybe you didn't, but I really thought Quimper Village had done an SG1 workshop.
I think he developed it after we had moved in,
Okay.
and some of
It was
based on that
It was
program.
right early on in the very beginning
Yeah,
that actually drew people together from, I see people shaking their heads. Rains, you're shaking your head, yes.
And Sandra too. I don't know, Sandra, if you're muted, but
Oh,
would
you
love
have to mute, unmute.
so much for my memory. Any of the development classes we took absolutely helped us. So that's
Yeah.
Yeah, Quimper Village did do the study group one, and I think that was before they came together and really decided to develop the co-housing, was the group at the Unitarian Church that did
okay.
that study group together.
Wasn't it that
Okay.
way? You
So the
know,
result was getting together to form Quimper Village.
Yes, it did play a part in pulling some people together.
right. We did do that, and I heard that it really helped form the core group.
Right.
Had like 400 people interested, and then when they found out what it was going to cost to develop, that narrowed down a lot. But yeah, Katie and Chuck, I can't say enough for, especially Katie with helping us with all the development stuff.
Thank you. We've got time for a couple more questions and I have two in the queue. So we'll go with those and then we can close this out. So someone is wondering, have you ever turned people away? Can you legally do that? And how do you handle the situation where someone's capacities diminish so they can no longer do their fair share of the work?
So I'll jump in on this. Turning people away. We have a whole process for orienting people to be prospective buyers, and it's on our website. If you go to cohousing.com, not cohousing.org, we have a waiting pool of people who've gone through an educational process. They've visited the community, they've come to a common meal, they've visited with members, so that they're aware of what is involved in living in a co-housing community, and they join a wait pool. And then when a house is for sale, the wait pool is notified, and if there's someone who is can afford the unit, there's a match, then they are a prospective buyer, and we don't turn anybody away. But that's between the seller and the buyer. But our community has a 30-day right of first refusal where we take the time from when and I know PDX Commons has a similar process. When the seller's ready to post their unit, the waiting pool who've gone through that are notified, and then there's a negotiation. So we're not encouraging people who've never experienced, never learned about co-housing to just come buy a unit. That doesn't work because people ultimately end up being disappointed and the community is frustrated. So we do have that process for vetting potential buyers, but it's not discriminatory because we don't choose the buyer. That's between the buyer and the seller. That's number one. For people who already live in the community, I mentioned a woman who is going to be moving to assisted living. She is not able to do physical work, but she has two jobs. One is she's been creating a newsletter once a month, and she drives her golf cart. She has a golf cart because she can't get around very well. And she collects once a month in orange bags extra food that each of us buys for our survival center. And she works with two teenagers. She doesn't actually pick up the food, but she drives her cart around and the kids go and get the bags that we leave out on our doorstep. And then she has somebody else who delivers it to the survival center. So her job is to put out the notice a few days ahead, like get your canned goods ready. And then she organizes the kids, and that's how she contributes. She's 90 years old. So we definitely accommodate people whose abilities diminish after they've been in the community. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll ask Lou and Mina to jump in.
Well, I would Diane, you and I have done twice the Matters of Membership, which is another virtual workshop. This whole idea of selecting members and resale, that's a whole topic that we spent an hour and a half on. So I would suggest you go look at that in the Coho library. And that's a really good resource. And it goes in a little more depth about how you do selection and resales. But it's Diane has given you a summary of some of the key points.
I would add to what Diane was talking about as members have aged or had crises in their life that have prevented them from doing the jobs they signed up for. And we just try to work with the member who's incapacitated, because we find everyone wants to contribute. And we had one person that pretty soon wasn't, I'm not seeing at the meals, I'm not seeing her coming to meetings, and she was feeling guilty because she could no longer do the jobs she was doing. So she started withdrawing, and we definitely don't want that. So we're finding we have a buddy. Each of us has one or two buddies that help us with if we have a health crisis, they communicate things. And we ask the buddy to talk to them and see if we can find a job that they can do that they would find satisfaction. One of the members was ending up with a walker, and she couldn't do the jobs. And so she took on napkins because she could do washing and drying and folding. And so she'd take her walker out, and she had a laundry basket, and we all threw napkins at her into the laundry basket. Well, it became a routine. At the end of every meal, somebody walks around with a basket now, and we throw the laundry in there. But it's just the idea of knowing everybody wants to contribute and helping them find a way to do that, and not judging it. I mean, we don't have work requirements, so there's people that do a lot more than other people, and that's okay.
Great. Thanks to all of our presenters today. Before I close us out with some final details, any last words that you'd like to share?
Diane, maybe you could put in chat the link for the seniors in co-housing, the email. Somebody was asking for your email as well.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Great. Well,
it's a great way to live. It really is. And I hope people that are looking can find a community that works for them or start their own. It's worth the effort.
Totally. Best decision I ever made for myself and my family is senior co-housing.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lou, Diane, and Mina, as well as to Shelley. You all are representing such important facets of this big dynamic movement that we're within. So I'm really grateful for your time. Take a moment while I'm closing out to download the chat, which you can do with those little 3 dots. In the chat, there's 3 little dots. You can click on that and you can save chat, or take a moment to write down any emails or contact information that you need. And I will tell you about our final Co-Housing Week events that are coming up. So tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific, we're going to have a storytelling event. Shelley, as you were telling your story, I was so wishing that we had that captured for tomorrow's event too, because it was just so lovely. I hope tomorrow will bring tears to my eyes as Shelley's story did. We've got a few handpicked storytellers, and then we'll also have a chance for folks to share stories of community with one another. And then our open house after party is on Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific. That'll be hosted by Neil and Rains. You can just bring your stories and your videos, and we'll just celebrate open house weekend as well as co-housing. And just a reminder, yes, all of these are recorded. We're going to send it out next week. You'll have all of the recordings in one place. One last plug for our new membership deal. We'll put those links, yep, right there in the chat. Thank you. Someone said that Rains is better than AI, and I completely agree with that sentiment. So this is a wonderful way to continue your education with co-housing, as well as to support the national organization that supports community-rooted housing nationwide. So thank you so much. And then finally, just remember that you all are a part of this movement, and we need your support to keep doing what we do. So that's a link if you feel called to support our organization, and we are grateful for that. So Thank you all so much for your time today. Hopefully I'll see y'all tomorrow, this weekend at open houses and beyond. So I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Bye-bye.